The moment I told my husband to wait in the car, like some unwanted child, I thought I was finally taking control of my life. I had no idea I was signing my own divorce papers. The autumn air was crisp outside our tech startup's gleaming downtown office as employees and their partners gathered for our biggest product launch of the year. I smoothed my emerald dress, the one that made my eyes pop, and checked my reflection in the glass doors one last time. This was my moment. After 3 years of grinding through late nights and weekend calls, I was finally being recognized as a key player in the company's success. "Lirien, you look incredible tonight." Damian's voice made me turn. My boss stood behind me, his charcoal suit perfectly tailored, that confident smile that had made half the office swoon. At 41, he carried himself with the kind of authority I craved. "Thank you, Damian. I'm so excited about tonight." I felt the familiar flutter in my stomach when he looked at me like that, like I was the only person in the room who mattered. "You should be. This launch is happening because of your market research. You're the star tonight." His hand briefly touched my lower back, sending electricity through me. That's when I heard Owen clear his throat behind us. My husband stepped out of our Honda Civic, adjusting his navy blazer, the same one he'd worn to every work function for the past 5 years. At 34, Owen still looked like the high school teacher he was, rumpled, earnest, completely out of place among the sleek tech crowd. "Honey, there you are," I said, my voice automatically shifting to that tone wives use when they're slightly annoyed. "Damian, this is my husband Owen." "Right, the teacher," Damian said, his handshake brief and dismissive. "Lirien talks about you." Owen's smile was polite, but I caught the slight tightness around his eyes. "All good things, I hope." "Of course," Damian laughed, but his attention had already shifted back to me. "Lirien, we should head in. The investors are eager to meet the brain behind our market penetration strategy." I felt a surge of pride. This was what success felt like, being valued, being seen as essential. Owen had never made me feel this important. "Actually," Damian continued, glancing at Owen with what looked like mild discomfort, "tonight's going to be pretty intense. Lots of industry talk, strategic discussions. Might be a bit dry for someone outside the tech world." I saw Owen's jaw tighten slightly. "I'm sure I can follow along." "Oh, I'm sure you can," Damian said smoothly. "It's just that some of our investors are particular about keeping these events focused. You understand?" The silence stretched uncomfortably. I could feel my carefully planned evening starting to derail. This was supposed to be my night to shine, not to manage awkward social dynamics. "You know what?" I heard myself saying, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. "Owen, maybe you should just wait in the car. This is really more of a work thing anyway." The words hung in the air like a slap. Owen's face went completely blank for a moment, and I saw something flicker in his eyes. Hurt, maybe, or disbelief. "Wait in the car," he repeated quietly. "Just for a little while," I rushed to explain, though part of me was already rationalizing. "You know how these industry events are. All shop talk and networking. You'd be bored out of your mind." "Lirien," Owen's voice was carefully controlled, "I'm your husband. I came here to support you." "And you are supporting me," I insisted, feeling defensive now. "Sometimes support means understanding when something isn't really for you. This is my career, Owen. This is important." Damian shifted beside us, and I was acutely aware of how this must look to him, the successful executive whose wife couldn't even manage her personal relationships professionally. "Look," I continued, my voice getting sharper, "you never really understand the pressure I'm under anyway. You have your little classroom and your summers off, but this is the real world. This is about our future." Owen stared at me for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was eerily calm. "Our future." "Yes, my success benefits both of us, benefits Eva too." I crossed my arms. "I need you to be supportive here, not jealous." "Jealous?" The word came out flat. "You get weird whenever I have work events. You sulk, You make comments about my boss. You act like I'm doing something wrong by being good at my job." The words were flowing now, months of frustration pouring out. I need a partner who lifts me up, not one who holds me back. I was vaguely aware of other colleagues arriving, some glancing our way. Marina, my closest friend at work, walked by and gave me an encouraging smile. She'd always said I was too good for Owen, that I deserved someone who matched my ambition. "So you want me to sit in the car," Owen said again, "for an hour or two? Is that really such a big ask?" I softened my voice slightly. "Come on, Owen, don't make this harder than it needs to be." He looked at me for another long moment, then at Damian, then back at me. Something in his expression changed. Not angry, just distant. "Okay," he said finally. "I'll wait in the car." Relief flooded through me. "Thank you, I knew you'd understand." "I understand perfectly." He turned toward the Honda. "Have a great evening, Lirien." Something in his tone made me pause, but Damian was already guiding me toward the entrance, his hand warm on my back. "That was handled well," he murmured as we walked. "Leadership sometimes means making tough calls." I felt validated, empowered even. This was what it meant to prioritize my career, to refuse to be held back by someone else's insecurities. The event was everything I'd hoped for. Investors praised my market analysis, colleagues congratulated me, and Damian made sure everyone knew I was the driving force behind our success. When he suggested we step onto the rooftop terrace for a celebratory photo, I didn't hesitate. "To Lirien Morland," he said, raising his champagne glass, as Marina snapped pictures with my phone. "The future of strategic marketing." The champagne was making me giddy, and when Damian leaned in close for the photo, his cologne mixing with the night air, I felt more alive than I had in years. This was who I was meant to be, not Owen's wife, not just Eva's mom, but Lirien Morland, successful professional. "Post that one," Damian said, looking at the photo over my shoulder. "You look radiant." I quickly uploaded it to Instagram with the caption, "When your boss recognizes your worth. Success, Arshur leadership, Botru, worth it." It wasn't until I was riding high on congratulations and LinkedIn notifications that I remembered Owen. I glanced toward the parking lot, expecting to see our Honda waiting patiently. The space was empty. "Huh," I muttered, pulling out my phone. No missed calls, no texts. "Everything okay?" Marina appeared beside me with another glass of champagne. "Owen left," I said, still staring at the empty parking spot. "Good for you," she said firmly. "Men can't handle it when we shine. He'll get over it." She was right, of course. Owen was probably just sulking, making a point. He'd be home when I got there, ready to have the same tired conversation about feeling left out or undervalued. I'd smooth things over, explain again how important my career was, and we'd move on. I turned back to the party, determined not to let his mood ruin my night. But as I posed for another photo with Damian, I couldn't shake the memory of Owen's expression when he'd said, "I understand perfectly." It wasn't hurt I'd seen in his eyes. It was something else entirely, something that looked almost like resignation. The next morning, I woke up alone. Owen's side of the bed was made with military precision, corners tucked tight, a habit from his college ROTC days that usually annoyed me. Now, it just felt cold. I padded to the kitchen in my silk pajamas, expecting to find him grading papers at the breakfast table with his usual Saturday morning coffee. Instead, I found a note propped against the coffee maker, taking Eva to Mom's for the weekend, back Sunday evening. Oh, no love, no XOXO, just his initial. Like a business memo. My phone buzzed with notifications. The Instagram post from last night had exploded, 127 likes, 23 comments, and several shares. My LinkedIn was pinging constantly with congratulations and connection requests. The validation felt like warm honey in my veins. "Girl, you are glowing in that photo," Marina had commented, along with 3 fire emojis. Power couple vibes, from Nate, our gossipy coworker. So proud of you, honey, from my mother, though I noticed she hadn't liked Damian's comment. Couldn't ask for a better partner in success. I screenshotted the post and sent it to my work group chat with the message, "When your hard work pays off." The responses were immediate. "Marina, you deserve all of this." "Nate, Damian clearly sees your value." "Some people should take notes, Priya from HR." "Congratulations on the successful launch." I was still basking in the digital praise when my phone rang. Mum's contact photo filled the screen, the glamorous headshot from her real estate business. "Lirien, honey, I saw your post. You look absolutely radiant." "Thanks, Mom. It was an incredible night. The investors were so impressed with my work." "That's wonderful, sweetheart. Your father and I are so proud." There was a pause. "Where was Owen in the photos?" I felt my jaw tighten. "He wasn't feeling well. You know how he gets around my work crowd, all awkward and out of place." Mum's tone was carefully neutral. "Well, I'm sure he's proud of you too." "Of course he is," I said quickly. "He's just processing. You know how men get when their wives succeed. Threatened." "Is that what's happening?" I walked to the living room window, looking out at our quiet suburban street. Mrs. Patterson was walking her ancient golden retriever, the same routine she'd followed for the past 5 years. Everything so predictable, so small. "Mum, can I ask you something? Do you ever regret not pursuing your career more seriously when Dad and I were younger?" Another pause. "That's a complicated question, honey. I just feel like I'm finally becoming who I'm supposed to be. Like I've been playing small for so long, trying to fit into this perfect wife and mother box, and now I'm remembering what it feels like to be valued for my mind." "There's nothing wrong with ambition, Lirien. Just be careful not to lose sight of what really matters." "My career matters too, Mum. My happiness matters." "Of course it does. I just think—" "I have to go," I interrupted. "Damian's calling about Monday's client presentation." It wasn't true, but I needed to end this conversation before she started lecturing me about priorities and family values. I hung up and immediately opened Instagram again, scrolling through the comments that reminded me I was on the right path. By Sunday evening, when Owen returned with Eva, I was ready to be magnanimous. I'd spent the weekend researching career advancement strategies and had even bought a new blazer online. Power red, perfect for the upcoming quarterly reviews. "Mommy," Eva launched herself into my arms, her dark hair smelling like Yolena's lavender soap. At 7, she was all elbows and energy, with Owen's serious brown eyes and my stubborn chin. "Hi, baby. Did you have fun at Grandma's?" "We made cookies and she taught me to knit. Look." Eva held up a lopsided square of purple yarn. "It's going to be a scarf for Daddy." "That's beautiful, sweetheart." I glanced over her head at Owen, who was setting down their overnight bag with the same methodical care he applied to everything. "How was your mother?" "Fine." He didn't meet my eyes. "She asked how you were." "What did you tell her?" "That you were busy with work." Eva had already bounded off to her room to show her stuffed animals her knitting project, leaving us alone in the entryway. The silence stretched uncomfortably. "Owen, about Friday night." "Don't." His voice was quiet but firm. "Just don't." "I think you're overreacting. It was one evening, and it was important for my career." He finally looked at me, and I was struck again by how tired he looked. When had those lines appeared around his eyes? "I'm going to grade papers," he said, moving toward his home office. "We should talk about this." "Should we?" He paused at the doorway. "What exactly would you like to discuss, Lirien? How I should be more supportive of your career? How I need to understand that your boss's comfort matters more than your husband's dignity? What talking points did Marina give you?" The accusation stung because it wasn't entirely wrong. I had texted Marina for advice on how to handle Owen's mood. "That's not fair." isn't it? He pulled out his phone and showed me the screen. 43 notifications yesterday about your post. Congratulations, by the way. You looked very happy. There was something in his tone that made my stomach twist. Are you tracking my social media now? I don't need to track it. It's public. He slipped the phone back into his pocket. I'm going to work now. Eva needs dinner in an hour. He disappeared into his office, leaving me standing alone in our hallway, feeling somehow like I'd lost an argument I didn't realize we were having. Later that evening, after Eva was in bed, I found myself wandering past Owen's office. The door was cracked open, and I could see him at his desk, surrounded by neat stacks of papers and color-coded folders. He'd always been obsessively organized, a trait I'd found charming when we were dating, and increasingly irritating as the years went on. His laptop was open, and I caught a glimpse of his calendar app. Most of the entries were normal. Parent conference, faculty meeting, Eva soccer practice. But there were several marked simply as downtown with specific times blocked out. Planning something? I asked, pushing the door open wider. He glanced up, his expression unreadable. Just organizing some things. Downtown appointments? That's mysterious. Not really. He turned back to his laptop, effectively dismissing me. I felt a flicker of irritation. You know, this silent treatment isn't solving anything. I'm not giving you the silent treatment. I'm working. Owen, come on. You're being ridiculous about Friday. It was one evening. His fingers paused over the keyboard. One evening. Yes, and it was important for my future. For our future. Our future, he repeated, the same flat tone he'd used Friday night. Stop doing that. Doing what? Repeating everything I say like it's ridiculous. He saved whatever he was working on and closed the laptop. When he looked at me, his expression was almost curious. Lirien, do you know what I told my mother when she asked how you were? You said I was busy with work. Before that, when she asked if you were happy, I felt my pulse quicken. What did you tell her? I told her I honestly didn't know anymore. He stood up, gathering his papers into precise stacks. I told her that my wife seems to think happiness means being somewhere else, with someone else, being someone else. That's not true, isn't it? He moved past me toward the door. When's the last time you seemed genuinely happy to see me, Lirien? Not relieved that I was handling Eva's bedtime, not grateful that I was doing the dishes. Actually happy to see me. The question caught me off guard. I opened my mouth to answer and realized I couldn't remember. I thought so, he said quietly. Good night. I stood in his empty office, surrounded by his careful organization and color-coded planning, feeling like I'd missed something important. On his desk, I noticed a manila folder labeled Household and another marked Utilities. Even our marriage had been filed away into neat categories. My phone buzzed with a text from Damian. Great energy at the launch Friday. Let's discuss your trajectory Monday. Big things ahead. The message sent a thrill through me, washing away the uncomfortable conversation with Owen. This was what mattered. Recognition, advancement, respect. Owen would come around eventually. He always did. I took a screenshot of Damian's message and sent it to Marina with a row of celebration emojis. Her response was immediate. He sees your worth. Some people are just threatened by successful women. Don't dim your light for anyone. She was right. I was finally stepping into my power, and if Owen couldn't handle that, it said more about him than it did about me. But as I headed to bed, I couldn't shake the image of his calendar with those mysterious downtown appointments, or the way he'd said, our future, like it was a foreign concept. Something was shifting in our house, and for the first time, I wasn't sure I was the one controlling the narrative. The following Friday brought our company's monthly rooftop mixer, a casual networking event that had become legendary for its city views and flowing wine. I'd been looking forward to it all week, especially after Damian's Monday morning meeting, where he'd hinted at a possible promotion to senior marketing director. "You've got the vision, Lirien," he'd said, leaning back in his leather chair. "The question is whether you're ready to step into a leadership role that demands total commitment." Total commitment. The phrase had echoed in my mind all week like a promise. I chose my outfit carefully. A black wrap dress that was professional yet flattering, paired with the red blazer I'd bought online. Power colors. Marina had texted me that morning. "It's your night to shine. Show them what a real leader looks like." The rooftop was already buzzing when I arrived at 6. String lights twinkled against the darkening sky, and the city spread out below us like a circuit board of possibilities. I grabbed a glass of wine and immediately spotted Damian near the railing, surrounded by a small group of colleagues. "Lirien," he waved me over with that magnetic smile. "Perfect timing. We were just discussing the Henderson account strategy." I slipped into the circle, feeling the familiar rush of being included in high-level discussions. This was where I belonged, among people who understood ambition, who valued intelligence and drive. "I think the key is positioning ourselves as disruptors rather than competitors," I said, jumping into the conversation. "We're not just offering a better service, we're reimagining the entire customer experience." "Exactly," Damian said, his eyes lighting up. "This is why you're invaluable to this team." The conversation flowed, wine loosened tongues, and I felt more confident and articulate than I had in months. When Nate joined our group with his phone already out, ready to capture content for the company's social media, I didn't think twice about it. "We need to document this dream team," he announced, holding up his phone. "The brain trust behind our biggest quarter yet." "Absolutely," Damian agreed, moving closer to me. "Lirien's been the driving force behind our success." As Nate positioned his phone for the perfect shot, I felt Damian's arm slip around my waist. The wine had made me bold, giddy with professional success, and the intoxicating feeling of being valued. "To the future," Damian said, raising his glass. "To the future," I echoed. And then, as Nate's phone captured the moment, Damian leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't a long kiss, barely more than a celebratory peck, but the wine and the attention and the validation made me lean into it instead of pulling away. For a few seconds, I felt like the successful, desirable woman I'd always wanted to be. The group around us erupted in whoops and laughter. "Power couple," someone called out. Nate was grinning behind his phone, clearly delighted with the content he'd captured. "You two are goals," Marina said, appearing beside us with her own phone out. "The energy is incredible." I was laughing high on the moment when I noticed the elevator doors opening across the rooftop. Owen stepped out, scanning the crowd with that careful way he had of assessing a room. My stomach dropped. He was wearing his good khakis and the blue button-down I'd bought him last Christmas, clearly making an effort. In his hand was a small wrapped box, the kind that usually contained jewelry. Our eyes met across the rooftop, and I watched his face change as he took in the scene. Me in Damian's arms, both of us flushed with wine and laughter, surrounded by colleagues who were still chuckling about our power couple moment. "Oh shit," I heard Nate mutter, lowering his phone. Owen walked toward us with measured steps, his expression unreadable. The chatter around us gradually died as people sensed the shift in energy. "Owen," I said, stepping away from Damian, "what are you doing here?" "I brought you something." His voice was perfectly calm. "I thought I'd surprise you." He held out the small box, and I recognized it now, the jewelry store bag I'd seen him hiding in his closet last week. I'd assumed it was for my birthday next month. "That's sweet," I managed, acutely aware of everyone watching us. "I can come back," he said quietly, "if this is a bad time." "No, it's—" I looked around at the expectant faces, at Damian, who was trying to fade into the background, at Nate, who was still holding his phone like he wasn't sure whether to keep recording. "It's fine. We were just celebrating the quarterly numbers." "I saw." Owen's gaze flicked to Damian, then back to me. Congratulations. The word hung in the air with a weight that made my chest tight. Owen, it was just a celebration, he finished. I understand. There was that phrase again, delivered with the same careful neutrality that was becoming his signature. Maybe we should go somewhere private to talk, I suggested, desperate to control the narrative before it spiraled further. No need. Owen set the small box on the nearby cocktail table. I can see you're busy. I'll head home. Owen, wait. But he was already walking away, moving through the crowd with the same measured pace he'd used to approach. I watched him disappear into the elevator, leaving me standing there with a room full of colleagues who had just witnessed my husband deliver a gift and walk away after catching me in another man's arms. The silence stretched for exactly 3 seconds before Marina stepped in with the damage control skills that made her excellent at client relations. Well, that was awkward, she said with a laugh that sounded almost natural. Marriage drama, am I right? More wine, anyone? The group gradually dispersed, conversations resuming in careful tones that pretended nothing had happened. But I could feel the undercurrent of gossip starting to flow. Damian appeared beside me, his expression concerned. Are you okay? Fine, I said automatically. He gets weird about work events. Maybe we should call it tonight. No. The word came out sharper than I intended. I'm not going to let his insecurity ruin my evening. This is exactly the kind of thing I was talking about. He can't handle my success. I picked up the jewelry box Owen had left behind. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a small pendant engraved with our wedding date. The kind of thoughtful gift he specialized in. The kind that used to make me feel cherished instead of trapped. That's beautiful, Marina said, looking over my shoulder. It's fine, I said, snapping the box shut. Owen. I slipped the box into my purse and reached for another glass of wine, determined to salvage the evening. But the magic had gone out of the night. Even as I laughed at Nate's jokes and discussed strategy with Damian, I kept thinking about Owen's expression when he'd said, I understand. Not hurt, not angry, just resigned. By the time I got home 3 hours later, the house was dark, except for the porch light Owen always left on for me. I found him in his office, surrounded by the same neat stacks of papers, but now there were several manila folders spread across his desk. Owen? I knocked on the doorframe. Can we talk? He looked up from whatever he was organizing. How was the rest of your evening? It was fine. Look, about what happened? What happened? His tone was genuinely curious, like he was asking about the weather. You know what happened. The thing with Damian, it didn't mean anything. I'm sure it didn't. His easy agreement should have been reassuring, but somehow it made me feel worse. You're not angry? Should I be angry? I don't know. Most husbands would be upset. Most husbands probably wouldn't have been told to wait in the car last week either. The reference to Friday night hit like a slap. That's not fair. Isn't it? He turned back to his papers, making notes in his careful handwriting. Lirien, I'm not angry. I'm just organizing some things. I looked at the folders spread across his desk, noticing labels like insurance, accounts, Eva's school records. Everything categorized and filed with his typical precision. What kind of things? Household things, financial things, just making sure everything is in order. Something cold settled in my stomach. Why? It's good to be organized. He closed one folder and moved to the next. You never know when you might need quick access to important documents. I wanted to ask more questions, but Eva's voice called from upstairs. A nightmare, probably. By the time I'd settled her back to sleep and returned to Owen's office, the light was off and the door was closed. I stood in the hallway, holding the jewelry box he'd brought me, trying to shake the feeling that I'd missed something crucial. On the other side of the door, I could hear the soft sound of papers rustling, the quiet click of file folders being organized, Owen was planning something. I just couldn't figure out what. But as I headed to bed, one thought kept circling through my mind. For a man whose wife had just been caught kissing her boss, Owen seemed remarkably calm, almost like he'd been expecting it. The video appeared on Monday morning. I was settling into my desk with my usual vanilla latte when Marina rushed over, her face a mixture of excitement and concern. "Lirien, honey, you need to see this." She thrust her phone toward me. "Nate posted it on his Instagram story, but people are screen recording it." The footage was surprisingly clear for a phone video. There I was on the rooftop, radiant in my red blazer, leaning into Damian's kiss while our colleagues cheered around us. The audio caught our laughter, someone calling us a power couple, and my own voice saying, "To the future." What the video didn't show was Owen's arrival, but the comments section was already filling with speculation. "Wait, isn't she married? Her husband showed up right after this. Awkward. Get it, girl. Life's too short." This is why I don't trust married women at work events. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through the responses. In less than 12 hours, the video had been shared 43 times and viewed over 2,000 times. "It's not that bad," Marina said quickly. "Most of the comments are supportive. People understand that you're a professional celebrating a win." "My mother-in-law is on Instagram," I said faintly. "Okay, we'll handle it. Nate shouldn't have posted it without asking. I'll talk to him." But when I looked across the office, Nate was surrounded by a cluster of coworkers, all looking at phones and talking in the animated way people do when they're discussing drama that doesn't directly affect them. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Honey, Mrs. Patterson showed me something on her phone. Call me." Then another from Owen's sister. "Saw the video, is everything okay?" And another from a number I didn't recognize. "This you?" I closed my laptop and headed for the bathroom, needing a moment to think. In the mirror, I looked pale despite my carefully applied makeup. This was exactly the kind of thing that could derail a career. Not the kiss itself, but the messy personal drama that came with it. When I returned to my desk, there was an email waiting from Priya in HR. "Hi Lirien, when you have a moment, could we chat about maintaining professional boundaries at company events? Nothing urgent. Thanks, Priya." My stomach dropped. HR involvement meant this was already being treated as a potential problem. I spent the rest of the morning fielding texts and trying to focus on work while feeling like everyone was watching me. Some colleagues offered supportive smiles. Others seemed to be whispering when I passed their desks. Damian was in client meetings all day, which was probably for the best. I needed time to figure out how to handle this before we talked. By lunch, I'd crafted my strategy. This was about jealousy and insecurity. Owen's inability to handle my professional success had created an awkward situation, but I wasn't going to be shamed for celebrating my achievements. I called my mother during my lunch break. "Lirien, what in the world is going on?" Mom's voice was strained. "Mrs. Patterson showed me a video of you kissing some man at a work party." "It was a celebratory moment, Mom. We'd just closed a huge deal. It was like kissing someone at New Year's. It didn't mean anything." "But you're married, honey." "I'm also a professional with my own career and my own achievements. Owen has been weird and jealous about my success, and now he's making me feel guilty for celebrating." "Where was Owen when this happened?" I hesitated. He showed up unexpectedly. I think he was trying to check up on me, honestly. It's been a pattern lately. He doesn't trust me to handle my own professional relationships. "Lirien, Mom, I need you to support me here. I'm finally hitting my stride professionally, and instead of celebrating with me, my husband is making everything about his insecurities. I need my family to understand that I'm not going to apologize for being successful." There was a long pause. "Of course I support you, sweetheart. I just want to make sure you're thinking clearly about your priorities." "My priority is building a career I'm proud of. I thought you'd understand that." After I hung up, I felt better. I was controlling the narrative, explaining the context, refusing to be painted as the villain in my own success story. The rest of the week followed a similar pattern. I had lunch with Marina, who reinforced that I had nothing to apologize for. I spoke with my sister, explaining how Owen's jealousy was affecting our marriage. I even posted a subtle Instagram story, a quote about women supporting women and not dimming their light for anyone else's comfort. The responses were overwhelmingly positive from my professional network. Yes, Queen. Never apologize for your success. Some people can't handle powerful women. But there were other responses too, quieter ones. Owen's mother called the house twice, and both times I let it go to voicemail. His sister sent a carefully worded text asking if we could talk. Even my own mother called back Friday evening with a tone that suggested she'd been thinking more about our conversation. Honey, I've been talking to your father about everything, and we're wondering if maybe you and Owen should consider counseling. Counseling? I was in the kitchen, making Eva's dinner while Owen graded papers in his office. Mom, I don't need counseling. I need a husband who supports my career instead of sabotaging it. How is he sabotaging it? He shows up at my work events uninvited, makes me feel guilty for networking, acts jealous whenever I have professional success. It's exhausting. But Lirien, that video was a moment of celebration that got blown out of proportion because Owen can't handle seeing me valued by other people. Eva wandered into the kitchen, holding a drawing she'd been working on. Mummy, can you put this on the refrigerator? Of course, baby, let me see. The drawing showed our family, stick figures with carefully colored clothes, but something was off about the proportions. Eva had drawn herself in the middle, me on one side, and Owen on the far edge of the paper, almost like an afterthought. This is beautiful, Eva. Tell me about it. It's our family, she said matter-of-factly, but Daddy's far away because he's always in his office now. My chest tightened. Daddy's just busy with work, sweetheart. Like you. Yes, like me. Sometimes adults have to work hard to take care of their families. Eva nodded solemnly and skipped back to the living room, leaving me staring at her drawing. In her 7-year-old perception, Owen had already moved to the margins of our family. Maybe that wasn't entirely a bad thing. Maybe it was just an accurate representation of how our priorities had shifted. That evening, after Eva was in bed, I found Owen in his office again. The neat stacks of papers had grown, and I noticed several new folders labeled with dates and what looked like case numbers. We need to talk, I said, settling into the chair across from his desk. Okay. He didn't look up from his work. About the video. About this week. About how you're handling everything. How am I handling everything? You're being passive-aggressive. You're making me feel guilty for having a career, for being good at my job, for celebrating my successes. He finally looked at me, his expression thoughtful. Is that what I'm doing? Yes, and it's not fair. I need a partner who lifts me up, not one who makes me feel bad for being ambitious. I see. He made a note on whatever document he'd been reviewing. What would lifting you up look like? The question caught me off guard. Supporting my career, being proud of my achievements, not making everything about your feelings. Your feelings don't matter. Of course they matter, but you're letting jealousy and insecurity poison our relationship. Owen was quiet for a long moment, his pen poised over his papers. When he spoke, his voice was measured and calm. Lirien, do you think Eva's happy? What does Eva have to do with this? She drew a picture today. Did you see it? Yes, she's just processing the fact that we're both busy with work. Is that what she's processing? He opened a desk drawer and pulled out several more of Eva's drawings, spreading them across his desk like evidence. Look at the progression. The drawings were dated over the past month. In the first one, our family was clustered together, holding hands. In the second, there was more space between the figures. By the most recent one, Owen was barely on the page. She's 7, Owen. She's not making deep psychological statements about our marriage. Isn't she? He gathered the drawings back into a neat stack. Children see things pretty clearly, don't they? I felt a flicker of irritation. What's your point? My point is that maybe Eva's not the only one who's noticed that our family is changing. Families evolve, people grow. I'm not going to apologize for becoming the person I'm meant to be. I'm not asking you to apologize. He closed the folder he'd been working on and looked at me directly. I'm just trying to understand who that person is. Something in his tone made me pause. What do you mean? I mean, the woman I married wouldn't have told her husband to wait in the car. She wouldn't have kissed her boss at a work party. She wouldn't have spent a week explaining why both of those things were actually my fault. The words hit like a physical blow. People change, Owen. People grow. They do, he agreed quietly. The question is whether they grow together or apart. I stared at him, this man I'd been married to for 8 years, and realized I couldn't read his expression anymore. The Owen I knew would have been hurt, angry, demanding explanations and apologies. This Owen was just documenting everything. What are you saying? I'm not saying anything, I'm just organizing some paperwork. He gestured to the folders spread across his desk, making sure everything is in order. You keep saying that. What paperwork? Important documents, financial records, Eva's school information, just being responsible. The cold feeling in my stomach was growing stronger. Owen, is this about divorce? He looked at me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. I think, he said carefully, that we both need to decide what we want our family to look like going forward. What does that mean? It means I'm making sure I understand our situation clearly. I'm documenting things. I'm preparing for various possibilities. What possibilities? All of them. He turned back to his papers, effectively ending the conversation. I sat there for another moment, watching him work with his methodical precision, feeling like I was missing crucial information. Owen? Yes? Do you love me? He paused, his pen hovering over the document. When he looked up, his eyes were sad but clear. I love the woman I married, he said quietly. I'm just not sure she exists anymore. The words followed me to bed that night, echoing in my mind as I lay awake staring at the ceiling. Owen slept beside me, but the distance between us felt like a canyon. I told myself he was being dramatic, that this was just his way of processing his jealousy and insecurity. But as I listened to his steady breathing, I couldn't shake the image of those carefully labeled folders, or the way he'd said all possibilities, like he was preparing for war. Whatever Owen was planning, he was doing it with the same methodical care he applied to everything else in his life. And for the first time, that precision felt less like a quirk and more like a threat. The weeks blurred into an eerie routine. Owen organized documents obsessively. I buried myself in work, chasing promotion. The video scandal faded. Damian and I kept professional distance, chemistry simmering but contained. Eva's tears over her imperfect scarf for sad daddy shattered me. She noticed his lingering glances, his folders of papers, the way he documented her favorites, like someone preparing to leave. She asked if we were divorcing. Thursday's investor presentation was flawless. I shone in my navy dress, securing funding and praise. Then, a hotel manager delivered Owen's envelope, divorce papers, custody petitions, meticulous evidence of my choices. His note wished me success. He'd waited until my triumph to reveal the cost. Owen hadn't been passive. He'd been methodical, patient, and now gone. Surrounded by applause, I realized I'd traded my family for a hollow victory.